Good afternoon, YouTubers. It's Sunday afternoon. What's the date today, Fiona?
Sorry?
What's the date today?
It must be the 11th, I think.
11th of June 2023. I've been off today. Haven't been working today. Great. I'm loving it. And I've been watching the internet. I've been watching lots of different things going on in the internet world and YouTube world, and it's all good stuff. I watch the news as well. As you know, I don't do politics. I don't get involved in rows and things if I can help it. And I was watching on the news. There's loads of people sleeping on the streets, you know, with loads of bags and tents and things on the pavement. And I've seen this in America. I've seen YouTubers driving around in Los Angeles, I think, that sort of place, and there's like literally just row after row of people just living in tents. And there's a lot of people at the moment in the media talking about homeless and refugees pouring into the country, coming over on boats, and you think, where are we going to put all these people? Let's put them in hotels. We've all got to pay for them to be put in hotels. Well, there's a very simple solution to all this, and it's a sensible solution, by the way, not a stupid suggestion. Before you jump to conclusions, right? During the Second World War, where I grew up in the 90s, I was born in 61, so everyone, all the grown-ups had been in the war, and they were all still talking about it because they're obviously traumatised. It was only 16 years after the war ended. Now, what happened was in the cities, the German bombers used to fly over and drop loads of bombs and blow everybody's houses. Well, not everybody's house, but a lot of houses got blown up. And if your house got blown up, you had nowhere to live. So you'd either go and stay with relatives or sleep in a church hall or somewhere. You know, you had to have somewhere to live. So what they did, the councils, they shipped, I was told they were shipped in, little concrete prefabricated houses from America. They were just literally a bungalow that bolted together with a roof. And all they required was a concrete base. So they put them up in public parks and wherever they could. They just put a load of concrete bases in, got a load of prisoners of war or something to go and pull all these concrete bases. And then they literally just erected a bungalow, a little bungalow called a prefab. Okay, with nothing fancy, it was just a basic, warm, what's the word I'm looking for? What's that word? Utility, anyway, basic building, okay, that functioned and worked and it was comfortable. Utilitarian, something, no, can't remember. I'd never make an English teacher, would I? Yeah, they were prefabricated. Anyway, they only had a 10-year shelf life. They thought, well, they're just temporary, we'll bang them up, put people in, you've been bombed out, yeah, there you go, you have that house, you have that house, you have that house. And they plumbed them in with water and drains and electricity and things like that, and they just put them up, put the wires up, set them up, and they were put up in seconds. We've seen this hospital in Wuhan. Remember when the virus thing started off? They built a 1,000-person hospital in a week, wasn't it, or 2 weeks? So that is the answer. That is the answer. But adding to that, these houses were only meant for 10 years to survive 10 years. And like 70 years later, people were still living in them. And when the council came along and said, look, we're going to demolish the site, we're going to put you all in a high-rise block of flats, they were saying, no, go away, we don't want it, we like our little bungalow. Because they were really popular. You know, they were nothing fancy, nothing to shout about, but they were really good, really, really good. So you got so many old airfields that the military, that the government owned like that, sell the land. They could put loads and loads of prefabricated bungalows on there and house all these people that need housing.
Are you just talking
Margaret Thatcher sold all the council houses off, didn't she? Well, not all of them, but most of them.
That was a brilliant idea. That was a brilliant idea.
But then you've got no council houses.
I don't care. I think Margaret was right. There are certain things that Margaret Thatcher did that I really think that were a brilliant idea. And I know the argument at the time was she didn't sell them all off. She allowed people
to buy them.
The option. She didn't force anybody.
I'm not complaining about it. I'm saying she sold them off, but they should build more.
And the other thing she did...
Because my grandmother, who'd lived in their council house for 40 years, she bought her council house in Liverpool. It was a 3-bedroom. She bought it for £6,000. She left it to my dad, who left it to me, and I sold it for, 25? And this was going back a long time. But so I benefited from it. So I'm not knocking Margaret Thatcher. Okay, let me just put that in the argument straight
There
away.
are things to
But
criticise Maggie for. She's a fascinating Prime Minister, actually, to look back on and study.
I'm talking about housing. You're
Did
diverting
you know?
into politics. I don't want to go into politics.
There was a guy that we used to know lived in a railway carriage in Norfolk, and it was absolutely divine. And that was out of necessity from
I live in a railway carriage.
from the Second World War. Yeah, Second World War. And then he sort of added extensions onto it, and it was really quite impressive.
We've known people who've lived in buses, lorries,
Yep.
cars,
Yep.
vans,
And they fixed them up
caravans.
lovely.
and you can. It's amazing what you can do with houses in a small space. You just got to think outside the box, and you
Elon
a
Musk.
double-decker bus would make a brilliant house. Brilliant house.
Elon Musk is trying to get the cost of his flat pack house down to something like $10,000 or $15,000 because the cost of housing is just so it's become,
Ridiculous.
It's so difficult for young people to get on the property ladder, and they just want a little bit of somewhere to go after work that's comfortable and warm and dry. And people, I mean, we're a classic example. When we went back to the UK after sort of, touring, let's say we were on tour around Europe, let's put it that way, I did explore council housing. I just thought, well, it's worth a try. I was out here with Ben, and little Sammy was 3. Faith, she changed. We called her
2.
Samantha, and she changed her name. And I
That's
went
only
to
recently though.
I went to Brighton Council, and I knew it was a long shot anyway. Anyway, the long and the short of it was, a lady came to visit me at my mother-in-law's to talk about the possibilities, and she said, Brighton's very popular, and actually you being with Graham and 2 children, and you're sleeping on a mattress on your mother-in-law's floor, you're not going to be prioritised. And I understood that. And I said to her at the time, don't worry, withdraw my application because I'm going to buy a bus, a caravan or a boat. I'm going to make my own arrangements. And she said, I was quite horrified, she said, don't do that. You will alleviate Brighton Council of their responsibilities. And I just thought that was awful. I thought, no, there are other people who seriously need it, and I'm capable. Don't worry about me, I'll sort myself out. And that's what we did, basically. We bought a boat for £1,500 in a boatyard on blocks. And we fixed it up until it was good enough to go in the water, and the kids absolutely loved it. But so we found somewhere to live out of necessity. And then the boat we've got here was sort of the upgrade, the larger one of the 2. So, yes, I'm all in favour of prefabs and
They're a brilliant idea. I'm not
flat
suggesting that
packs.
we use old concrete ones from World War II, but I mean something more modern, but on a similar, nothing fancy, just and places like RAF Scampton. If you look at RAF Scampton in Airfield, where the Red Arrows and Vulcan bombers used to take off from up the A1 somewhere, it's absolutely enormous. You could literally fit thousands and thousands of these prefabs on there.
Of course, they'd have to have drainage fitted.
Oh yeah, you
you'd end
put
up in a
the
terrible
drainage
state.
in, you put all the amenities in. Obviously, you have to put shops in as well and
This is
pubs.
this is another thing you've got to think about. The local community who already live in the area may object. We've always campaigned for travellers, but only if they buy their own land and it's nice and it's clean.
Well, it's just tough. You have to share the world with other people. I mean, Liverpool. I'm from Liverpool, right? And we'd prefer it if Manchester was just not there. Just fields. But unfortunately, it's full of people from Manchester.
Right.
So that's a good example of how stupid that argument is.
Can I just play devil's advocate?
Go on.
Let's say you'd spent £500,000, you'd worked your whole life, you'd finally bought the cottage of your dreams, like Daily Mail, picturesque, you're in the middle of nowhere, and a bunch of tinkers rock up in the field next to you. Would you mind? I think you would. I know you pretty well. You'd be the first one to complain, and that's why there are planning laws. But planning laws do need reform. John Major and Boris Johnson.
I'd be quite happy to
both
live in
said the same.
harmony with tinkers and bikies.
But
As long as they
you have
didn't come
to-
and bother me. So as long as we were friends and everything, that's cool.
Even in the days of the Great Depression and the Hooverville communities in, was it Central Park and other places, they had unemployed architects, plumbers, builders, and they had their own kind of unofficial standards where they said anyone who wanted to build their house out of pallet wood had to be nice, had to keep it clean. And it's actually, that's quite a criminal thing what happened to the Hoovervilles. That was terrible. But even they had
It's like the Warsaw Ghetto. They just battered everyone and burned their houses down, didn't they?
Planning laws should really be showing respect to the local community and
Yeah,
neighbours, not being a bother, not being an
But
eyesore.
the whole point of what I'm saying here is not to build a new community, a new brave new world, right? It's an old airfield. We're going to put proper housing for people all over it, which is temporary housing for people who can come there. They can stay there until they're ready to move on. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, you got people going, oh, you've put me in a 3-star hotel, it's not good enough, and I can't get the Wi-Fi, I'm going to protest, you're only giving me £40 a week. You know, this isn't the sort of wavelength we should be on. We shouldn't be thinking like that. You think, right,
It's
these homeless
cheeky,
people,
isn't it?
put them in there for now. If they trash the place, you throw them out. Simple as that.
Well, I mean, it is awfully cheeky. We're guests in Spain. And I wouldn't dream in a million years of kicking off on the Spanish and saying, I demand this and I want better. I just wouldn't do it. I feel when in Rome, do you know what I mean? You behave yourself and, you don't inflict your culture on another person. You behave yourself. You're a guest.
Yeah, you can't go up to a Spaniard and say, we don't do it like that in England. You're wrong, San Miguel.
Well, yes,
this is how we do it.
So I find it, if Britain has been kind enough to offer a home, and I know a lot of immigrants do feel like this when they move to Britain. An awful lot of them are extremely grateful and very loyal and often become monarchists and stuff because they're like, thank you so much for giving me the chance to get a job, to work, to earn. But then, of course, there are always other people who, and we've met them at Dolphin Safari, we've met them all over the place, who think that life is a dole check and everybody else has to do the work for them.
Unfortunately, it's human nature. Okay, the biggest thing that holds people back in life is greed. Because, if I said to you, I'll give you £1,
that's not very much.
right, you go, oh, yeah, okay, thanks. I'll have £1, thanks a lot.
Give us another.
Have you got another £1 there, mate? Have you got a fiver? And they'll just be there and they'll take you for everything. It's just human nature. You give someone a good job. Because the theory was with the workers...
Don't say anything about what Faith told us.
No. The workers are all working away. We want a pay rise. We want a pay rise. Want more money. No, you're not getting a pay rise. Right, we can't afford... And then they're putting things up in the shops.
Yeah.
So you've got to give them a pay rise to balance it up. And then they put the things up again. And the pay rise. And then up. And how it's got now, I used to talk to this old boy who was in the Royal Marines during World War II. I'm going to make this really quick because I've said this before. I said to him, how much was beer? Because they only got paid £6, didn't they, a week or something? I don't know. It was more than that. A few shillings. I said, how much was beer in World War II? And he said, the good stuff was £6. But we couldn't afford that, so we used to get the all right stuff for tuppence. There was 240 pennies in a pound. So there's 120 pints of beer you could buy with a pound. How much does it cost now to buy 120 pints of beer? And I'm not talking the good stuff, just the average stuff. So that's how much the currency has devalued over those years.
It's inflation.
You've got to fix prices of things. Then you don't have to put wages up. You fix prices, you fix wages, and that's where it stays. Otherwise, you're fighting this battle all the time, and all that's going to happen is your currency will implode one day. And you'll have a wheelbarrow full of money and you can't afford a loaf of bread.
That was another thing that Margaret was obsessed with, and rightly so, inflation. She wanted to make things cheaper.
Oh, it's been the bane
and I was
of every
going
Prime
to say
Minister.
that the other thing that she did that I always admired personally, I had a landline in my flat, and my phone bill, I kid you not, was about £600 a month with British Telecom, because my mum lived in the Outer Hebrides, and I'd ring my mum for a couple of hours a week, and the phone bill was just horrific. And I phoned BT once and complained, and their attitude was, where else are you going to go? Well, she privatised it, and the competition moved in. Oh, the phone book went from that thick to like a pamphlet, and rightly so. And I thought,
who uses the phone
British
anymore?
Telecom.
We've got a phone line in the house. I mean, we have to pay for the line, don't we?
We never use it. I don't even
First
know
thing I
where
did
it
was
is.
I unplugged it, wrapped it up and tossed it in the cupboard. I thought, I'm not using that. Because I've got Skype, well, not Skype, it's WhatsApp and stuff like this. I can call my brother in England for free. I can sit here all night talking to him until the battery dies on the phone. Who uses phones anymore? This is brilliant. This is a way forward.
Well, in those days...
And I don't care which political party, they've all got good ideas.
Yeah, they all have their pros and cons. But back then, I actually had the phone was cut off, and it was cheaper for me to have one of those old house brick Motorola mobile phones because I paid £60 a month rental, and then I paid for phone calls, and I didn't ring my mother in the Outer Hebrides, of course, but it was good enough. I could make the odd phone call, and I think I paid about £60.
There was no internet, though.
£120 I muddled through on my mobile phone instead of the £600 from British Telecom. And then eventually they dug up and they put the cable in for, I think it was 9X or something like that.
Anyway, we're getting Starlink, aren't
And I actually got arrested for answering my house brick mobile phone once, but that's another story.
we? Have you mentioned that on your channel?
No, I've never told that story. I've never told that.
You've got some,
I was arrested.
You've got some material for tomorrow for your channel.
Oh, there's so many.
I was just saying we're getting Starlink.
But I'm going to try and get Starlink.
Do you want to tell that story now? Go on, tell us,
well,
tell
I
the
might as
story
well
now.
now.
Tell the story. I'm going to get another one.
I wasn't going to tell the whole story. I was just going to say that because my landline was cut off, there were three of us. I'd allowed two other people to share my one-bedroom basement flat. And so I said, there's no landline. If you need to do anything, use my mobile number. We'll use it as if it's a landline. So they put it on various documents and headed paper and stuff. And these two lads went off and did something, put my mobile phone number on it. They were out doing their thing. Police phoned me up, said, do you know these two lads? And I said, yes, I do. They said, is this your phone number? And I said, yes, I'm the owner of the flat. This is the communal telephone number. It's the mobile phone number. They said, thank you very much. Next thing I know, 30 minutes later, they kicked the door in. They arrested all three of us, and I was held in the cells for 17 hours and 45 minutes. And yes, I did sue Sussex Police for that. And that's a long story. I did. They let the two lads go after about 6 hours. I was held the longest. They said I was the brains behind it. Oh, my God. Oh, Sussex Police in
You
those
despicable phone answerer,
days.
you.
You stole my glass.
You dial 999, mate. There'll be people on the end going, yes, hello, who are you? What do you want? They answered the phone.
But my point is that my arresting officer, who I have to say was as thick as a plank, a lot of them are very intelligent, but this guy was thick as a plank. He said, well, it's a mobile phone. It's one of them newfangled mobile-y phony things, and it must be a scam. And I said, don't be daft.
Only criminals can afford them.
Yeah, he said, you must be a criminal with one of those mobile-y phony things. Seriously. And I said to him, this is the future. Everybody's going to have a mobile phone. He went, I don't think so. It's a bit like the
Wake up, Dimbleby.
The Daily Mail when they said, she's got a website on this newfangled thing called the internet. Oh, it's a fad. That'll never take off. And oh, look who's got a website now, Daily Mail.
Well, in those days, if you had a website, that was because you were a .com millionaire, wasn't it? You were a criminal. I thought you were going to mention the plank of the week.
Oh, yeah. I never watched the end. I'm guessing it was Prince Harry.
Probably was. Well, there's my theory on housing, as I said. To recap and sum up before I go, I can't see a problem with that. That's real, simple, cheap solution to housing problems. You just build thousands of prefabricated houses on an old RAF base somewhere in the UK as a pilot scheme. It'd be a lot cheaper than Poundbury, that's for sure. Thank you, good night, and may your God go with you.